Felix and the Moonlight Fox. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled beside a dark forest, lived a boy named Felix. Felix had always been fascinated by the forest, especially at night. His grandmother often told him stories of mystical creatures that came out when the moon was full, but no story intrigued him more than the tale of the Moonlight Fox, a silver-furred fox that only appeared when the moon shone its brightest. One chilly autumn evening, as the harvest moon began to rise, Felix decided it was time to see if the stories were true. He wrapped himself in his favorite red scarf, grabbed a lantern, and quietly snuck out of his house. The village was silent, the air filled with the crisp scent of fallen leaves, and Felix could feel the excitement bubbling in his chest as he walked towards the forest. The forest seemed different at night. The trees stood tall like guardians, their leaves rustling softly in the wind. Felix walked along the winding path, his lantern casting a gentle glow. He heard the hoot of an owl, the rustling of unseen creatures, and the distant croak of frogs from a pond deep within the woods. Felix made his way to a clearing his grandmother had often mentioned, a place where the moonlight bathed the forest floor, making it shine like silver. He stood there, the moonlight washing over him, and waited. Minutes passed, and just as Felix began to doubt whether the Moonlight Fox was real, he heard a soft rustle. From the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes appeared. Felix held his breath as a silver fox stepped gracefully into the clearing. Its fur shimmered in the moonlight, and it moved with an elegance that seemed almost magical. Felix couldn't believe his eyes. The Moonlight Fox was real. The fox looked at Felix, its eyes curious but kind. Slowly, Felix knelt down, extending his hand in greeting. The fox sniffed the air, then took a cautious step forward, and another, until it was close enough to nuzzle Felix's hand. Felix's heart swelled with joy. He had made a friend. The fox suddenly perked its ears, as if listening to something Felix couldn't hear. It turned and looked back at Felix, its eyes beckoning him to follow. Without hesitation, Felix stood and followed the fox deeper into the forest, the lantern swinging by his side. They moved through the trees, the fox leading Felix to places he had never seen before. A small stream that glowed under the moonlight, a meadow filled with fireflies, and a tree with branches so twisted it looked like a staircase to the sky. Felix felt like he had stepped into one of his grandmother's stories. The fox led him to a spot where the forest opened up to reveal a hidden pond, its surface reflecting the full moon like a mirror. Around the pond were stones arranged in a perfect circle, and in the center of the stones was a patch of silvery flowers Felix had never seen before. The fox stopped by the flowers, nudging them gently with its nose before looking back at Felix. Felix understood. The flowers were special. He knelt down and picked a single bloom, its petals soft and shimmering. As soon as he did, the forest seemed to come alive. The fireflies danced around him, the leaves rustled as if whispering secrets, and the pond glowed with an ethereal light. The fox looked at Felix, its eyes filled with warmth, before stepping back into the shadows. Felix watched as the Moonlight Fox disappeared into the forest, its silver fur blending with the night until it was gone. Felix held the flower close, feeling a sense of peace and wonder. With the flower in hand, Felix made his way back to the village. The forest no longer seemed dark and mysterious. It was full of magic, secrets, and beauty. As he reached his house, Felix looked back at the forest, the moon still shining brightly above. He knew that this was not the end of his adventures. The Moonlight Fox had shown him that there was more to the world than what met the eye, and Felix couldn't wait to discover it all. The next morning, Felix woke up with the silvery flower still glowing softly in the vase by his window. He decided he had to share the wonder he had experienced with his grandmother. He wrapped the flower gently in a cloth and made his way to her cottage at the other end of the village. His grandmother's eyes widened in surprise when she saw the shimmering bloom. "Felix, my dear, is that what I think it is?" she asked, her voice full of awe. Felix nodded eagerly. "Yes, grandmother. I saw the Moonlight Fox, just like in your stories. It led me to a secret pond deep in the forest, and these flowers were growing there." His grandmother smiled, her eyes glistening. "I always knew there was truth to those old tales. You are very lucky, Felix. The Moonlight Fox does not show itself to just anyone. It must have seen something special in you." Felix beamed with pride. He spent the rest of the morning with his grandmother, sharing every detail of his adventure. She listened intently, her eyes twinkling with delight, and when Felix had finished, she reached into a small wooden box and pulled out a silver pendant shaped like a fox. "This belonged to your grandfather," she said, placing the pendant in Felix's hand. "He too saw the Moonlight Fox when he was young. He always said it was a sign of great things to come. Keep this with you, Felix. It will remind you that the forest holds many secrets, and you are now part of that magic." Felix hugged his grandmother tightly, the pendant clutched in his hand. He felt a deep connection to his grandfather and the stories that had always filled his imagination. He knew that the Moonlight Fox had given him more than just an adventure. It had given him a sense of wonder that he would carry with him always. That night, Felix returned to the clearing in the forest, the pendant hanging around his neck. He sat on a fallen log, watching as the moon rose high in the sky. He hoped to see the Moonlight Fox again. But even if he didn't, he knew the magic of the forest was always there, waiting for him. As the moonlight bathed the clearing, Felix heard a soft rustle, and his heart skipped a beat. From the shadows, the silver fox appeared once more, its eyes meeting Felix's. The fox stepped into the clearing, and this time it wasn't alone. Behind it, two smaller foxes emerged, their fur just as silver and shimmering as the Moonlight Fox's. Felix watched in awe as the foxes played in the moonlit clearing, their movements graceful and fluid. The Moonlight Fox looked at Felix, its eyes filled with a gentle warmth, as if inviting him to share in the joy of the moment. Felix laughed softly, his heart full, as he watched the foxes dance under the moonlight. He knew that this was just the beginning of many more nights spent in the magic of the forest. The Moonlight Fox had shown him a world beyond the ordinary, a world where the impossible became real under the glow of the moon. And as Felix sat there, the silver pendant glinting around his neck, he knew that he was part of something truly special, a story that would continue to unfold with every full moon. Felix carefully placed the silvery flower back in the vase by his window, where it glowed softly in the moonlight. He climbed into bed, pulling his blanket close, and closed his eyes. He could still feel the gentle nuzzle of the Moonlight Fox and hear the whispers of the forest. With a smile, Felix drifted off to sleep, dreaming of moonlit adventures and the magic that awaited him.